Happy Tuesday, and welcome back. It is I, Jay Baldell, here to bring you such an exciting addition to our Ophiel's Art and Practice of the Occult book study, because it is the last chapter. Hooray! We've done it. Well, almost. By the end of this, we will have done it. So congratulations. It's been a really fun book, really exciting so far. I hope, at least I think so. So I hope you do as well. Remember, so in the beginning, one of those things he had told us to do was make those 4x4. Oh, where is it? It's like right here in the back. Yeah, something like that. Color them according to the elements, right? So far, I've got this one here, and then I did it so that on the flip side, boom. Got to do the other one still, but decided to go ahead and do that. Hopefully you've gone ahead and done that as well. And then also, one thing I realized is in that last chapter, the whole sword mudra thing, how I was like, oh, if he doesn't tell you how, I'll show you. And neither of us did, we forgot, so I'm sorry about that, but here. So for you, I have this. So take a look at that, get yourself a little screenshot if you need. There's gonna be your sword mudra and your wand mudra. Those are gonna be your two primary things you're gonna be using for your ceremonial magical rituals. Welcome everyone, welcome. So happy to have you here, as always. Let's go ahead and let's get it cracking. Because this one is lengthy. This last one is lengthy, so he's leaving us off. He's leaving us off with a good bit to think about. Let's see, it's gonna be about a little over 20 pages, 22 pages. It's not terrible. We've done that already a couple times. I think he's had a few chapters already that have had about that many pages. So we're not scared. In fact, we're eager. Eager to get going. Cool. All right, just adjust that camera a little bit. Fabulous, fabulous, okay? Well, the final chapter, chapter 12. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on your way in if you haven't already. It's a beautiful snowy day here. Occult books and final. We now come toward the end of this book. In a sort of way, this book should have been written first before the others, in that I tried to make this book a sort of basic occult book, and to catch up and fill in what I felt were gaps in many persons' occult knowledge fundamentals. This, I hope, I have done in some good way in this book. After a passage of time, I will go over it again and spot any missing parts and correct them in a later a later book on lessons. I hope I'll do the best I can, I promise. And some of those books didn't get written, but as I said, I'm pretty sure some of them are in the vignettes. In this chapter, it is my intention to name and discuss as many good occult books as I can, or I know of. Good occult books are as scarce as hen's teeth, and as I have said before, most all occult books merely talk about the subject and give very little in the way of actual directions, probably because the writer didn't know anything himself of any value, or was bound by oaths not to give out any knowledge he had received in secrecy. So here we have a screwy situation, an occult teacher-writer trying to write teach and not being able to do so. So they just beat around the bush and get along that way. This never satisfied me very much, as I learned rather quickly, probably so did you, to notice these discrepancies between gush and the real thing, and wonder what it was all about. But I never did find out any real hard occult from books. Now, however, I will apparently contradict myself and say that there are some books that do contain some hard occult, generally in general knowledge form. This you can learn and then learn to use yourself. The use, of course, being the most important part of the occult. I would rather work with a third-class witch who could work one little thing rather than a big shot in some occult society who has no power at all. Yep. Therefore, with the above kept in mind at all times, I'm going to give a basic list of occult books here and describe some of them in detail. I thought I'd also give these books in the rough order in which I contacted them. Therefore, the writer in the first book I ran across was in 1930. The writer was Richard Ingalese. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that. It might be Ingales. And his book was The History and Power of Mind. As near as I can figure/estimate, this book was first printed around 1904. There is in it, I believe, a note saying the book was made up from lectures given in the lecture season in New York City in 1904. The reason I am including this book and all the other books in the list of occult books is that they do contain a reasonable amount of fair basic occult. For instance, Richard Ingalese speaks of something occult he calls demands made on the infinite. Well, this is rather basically true, except that the person making the demands has to be rather advanced before their demands have much chance of working fast. I hope to treat this advancement when I discuss the book Cosmic Consciousness later along in this list. Just the other day, recently, I was talking to an advanced person, a woman, and she said, I never worry about defending myself against injuries that spiritual people attempt to do to me. I find that anyone who does anything to me always gets it in the neck. Those few simple words made me stop and think, because the same thing had been happening to those who had crossed me up in underhanded ways. Also, I can recall that 20 or 30 years ago this was not true. Nothing seemed to happen to those who misused me in those times. But in these last 10 years, I have noticed that any injury done to me by someone is followed by a reaction on them. It is not always so clear, but I feel pretty certain that this process goes on, or a process like this goes on, in most every case of one who has crossed the line hereto described. Mr. Ingalese gives a system of colors of a sort, but many of his colors are hopelessly out of line and wrong, having no occult traditions that I can find anywhere. The only occult colors there are that are correct are the colors of the Sephiroth in the Kabbalah Tree of Life. So, you can read Mr. Ingalese's color ideas, but read them with a grain of salt. Mr. Ingalese wrote 7 books, as near as I can ascertain. If you know of any others, please contact me at the address in this book and give me the name of the book and the date. The books are, in rough order of their copyright dates, Mata the Magician, 1901, Linked Lives, 1903, The History and Power of Mind, 1904, Cosmogony and Evolution, 1907, Occult Philosophy, 1908, From Incarnation to Incarnation, 1908, Fragments of Truth, 1921. Some of these books are still available and used on the market, especially Occult Philosophy, and The History and Power of Mind is still in print by itself. So that page just cuts off right there like that. So keep it moving right here. Cool. How y'all doing? We better get a drink of water. We better thank the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for dying for our sins, so that we may be afforded the opportunities to exist in these capacities, such as getting together, reading fun books full of secret, forbidden knowledge, and the Gnostic Institute may keep some, or as many as we can, of these books on hand. If you are interested, inquire about them. As I said, these books have a certain value for beginning work. Some parts and subjects are wrong or useless, but you can drop those parts as you recognize them. I last heard of Mr. Ingalese from a small pamphlet printed in Los Angeles dated 1930, and of his wife, Isabella. Not at all. If anyone knows more about him after that date, please contact me with the information, and I will add it to the next printing of this book, if any. Now, the next writer I came in contact with was a man named William Walker Atkinson. This man lived about the same time as Mr. Ingalese. Apparently, he was the publisher as well as the author of many books of a semi-occult type. In fact, he wrote so many books that when the time came that he wanted to expand and change some of these books a little more, he did so under some other names. I believe he took a name like Dupont or some such similar French-like name and wrote as if he were a French teacher of some repute. You will find this French name on a series of books. Then, I believe he got off into a little India material, and I have good reason to believe he wrote some yoga-type books under the name of Ramacharaka. I find, as I write this material, that I seem to have none of these books on hand in my library as of this minute, although I do remember buying many of them. I believe I recall selling many of my extra books some years ago, as I have so many. Some years ago, I was visiting Paul Foster Case in Los Angeles. Mr. Case had been associated with Mr. Atkinson years ago in Chicago, and he told me the following story about how Mr. Atkinson's books were written. Mr. Case said Mr. Atkinson would read, study, bone up either on some special occult line if the forthcoming book was to be that kind or some general occult subjects. Then, when he was loaded, he would start writing and setting up the book in the print at the same setting up the book in print at the same time. He would sit at the typewriter and dash off a paragraph. Then the copy boy would tear it out off the machine and erase it to the linotype, who would proceed to set it up at once. And thus the books were printed and, according to this story, never revised to any extent. Mr. Case said that in those days, a $1 selling book could be manufactured for 15 cents each. Well, I can't write books like that. I find it very hard to do it anyway. I'm saying, I can imagine. If you are a beginner, you probably ought to read some or all of these books for what morsels of value are in them. Mr. Atkinson, like Mr. Ingalese, drops hints of masters hidden and hidden secret societies, plus vast hidden schools with huge hidden libraries of occult books. Well, I'm afraid that none of these things exist or ever did exist. I will try and include some few words on this subject later on. If you are an advanced student of the occult, then you have probably read all Mr. Atkinson's work, so you don't need them. However, we will try to keep Mr. Atkinson's books on hand, what are in print, and maybe we can keep some secondhand books of his also. Inquire about these books. If you are going to study the occult from the start, you might as well go through these two authors' phases to see what the beginning is about. Now, when you have gone through the above phase of those types of beginning occult authors by them, or some like them, you will reach the Aleister Crowley stage, and here was, indeed, a strange one. I have to resist the temptation here to write a biography about Aleister Crowley. I am not qualified to do this in any way, as all I know of the man is hearsay. All I can do is make a few remarks about his books and why. I cannot give here a full list of his works. You will find that in several of his biographies, what I want to do, and all I can do, is to give you a proper perspective of the value of his works writings. Aleister Crowley wrote in a peculiar disjointed style that seemed to me he would shift the subject about several different times in one paragraph, something I found very disturbing, as I just could not follow the changes clearly. Aleister Crowley was still alive when I came into the occult. He passed on at age 72 in 1947, before I had the ability and means to contact him. Mr. Crowley's most impressive series of writings was a number of books, each called The Equinox. The equinox is a calendar period, occurring twice in a year, when the days and nights are equal in the time length. About March 21st, spring equinox, and September 20th, 21st, fall equinox. At these two times, Mr. Crowley issued a copy of this equinox. For example, I note that I am writing these words on March 9th, 1967, and that the spring equinox of 1967 is only 12 days away. Another thing that Mr. Crowley used to do was to put on the top of his writing a notation as Sun in Pisces, Moon in Aries, for example. Today the sun is in Pisces and the moon is in Aries. That's a good habit to do in your journaling. Just a little tip for you. The equinoxes were pretty wild. Mr. Crowley's material ranged over a wide range of occult subjects, treating many phases of the occult in a rather shocking, on-purpose manner. I found it very difficult to get any occult knowledge power from his writings, but I couldn't understand what was wrong for a long time, as I just didn't savvy his style and temperament. Mr. Crowley got into the use of narcotic drugs, which was not against the law in those days, and I suspect used narcotic drugs in place of occult exercises to achieve occult progress of that type. Also, he apparently got into occult sex magic, whatever that is, and went off on that tangent in his writings and his life. All this stuff is mixed up in his books. Yeah. Right. Lots of things to be said about dear old Uncle Al. Shut the fuck up. Who cares? He, if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be reading these books right now. And it's like, none of you were there. None of you know him. None of you interacted with him. So much is said about the man, and on purpose. Because one thing I'm pretty sure that can be said for sure, that I've heard said about him, is that he kind of purposely just did wild shit, messed around with people, um, you know, like we would refer to as trolling in the modern day, right? However, I wasn't there, so fuck, I'm not gonna say either. What instead I'm gonna do is take my own advice and just shut the fuck up about it. Um, what's important is what he gave us. That's what's important. Not getting in your just similar with the thing with Dion Fortune. You know, yeah, I definitely am against anybody who's going to be promoting, especially through magical means, such things as racism, homophobia, any kinds of hatred, realistically, any kinds of things that seek to divide, to further keep mankind from progressing. I better just stop. Love you guys. Better just stop. Look. We read these things for the magic. So even Ophiel here, yeah, Ophiel, I could talk a whole, I could talk a whole mess about how disorienting your books are. Holy smokes! But I mean, I can follow them pretty decently. But whatever, buddy, it's okay. We love you as well. The real point I'm trying to make is it doesn't matter all the nitty gritty, and it seems like, and I'm making a prime example of it, that Crowley is like one of those people who just can't be brought up without, a whole bunch of crap that really just I don't think really needs to be gotten into, because I'm not really interested in all of that. I'm interested in learning magic and advancing spiritual progress and doing so for the rest of humanity. Okay, let's carry on. Love you, Ophiel. Love you, Crowley. Love you all. Happy Tuesday. Boy, it is Tuesday, isn't it? All right. I repeat, I found nothing much of value in his books that really helped me very much along the path. But it might be a different story with you. So, if you want to read him, go and do it with your eyes open. His books have become scarce, so you will have to scrounge around for them in the second-hand market. We may try to keep some on hand as a source. Please inquire. The next writer you may come in contact with is Mr. Israel Rigardi, or Dr. Francis I. Rigardi, as I know him. Mr. Rigardi was a student of Aleister Crowley around 1915, when Mr. Crowley had some sort of an abbey somewhere in southern Italy. I never was sure where it was exactly. The Italian government under Mussolini threw Mr. Crowley out of his abbey, and I surmised Mr. Crowley and Mr. Rigardi separated at that time. At any rate, Mr. Rigardi proceeded to write a number of books in the occult based on the Kabbalah basics. The latest lists before me is as follows: A Garden of Pomegranates, The Tree of Life, My Rosicrucian Adventure, The Middle Pillar, The Philosopher's Stone, The Golden Dawn, 4 volumes, Golden Dawn of 4 volumes, yeah. The Romance of Metaphysics, The Art of True Healing, The Art and Meaning of Magic. All of these books have good to great value to the occult student, and your occult knowledge education should include the reading of those that are available. Reading of all of those that are available. Some of them are out of print for years, such as The Tree of Life, due to other difficulties. Not anymore. I suggest The first book of this list that you read is a super occult book called The Romance of Metaphysics. Oh, shoot. Maybe we'll do that one as our first Rigardi book. Hazard Pie, shout out. Thank you for the feedback on that, by the way. Dude, bummer. Such a bummer on throwing that out, but I found this book of tremendous value in my early studies, and I am amazed that it does not have much wider acceptance in occult circles. As it was, I had to find it myself, almost by accident, and be entirely unprepared for its good occult knowledge, which I might have missed. The Romance of Metaphysics deals, as its title implies, with meta beyond physics, beyond the physical, which, in your case of present knowledge, you know to be beyond the north quarter of elemental Earth. You know a great deal about this already, you having just been through it. In a sense, you can say that the elemental forces are beyond physical, and is really what they are talking about. In other of his books, Mr. Rigardi does talk about magic, but in this book, he talks about metaphysics, which is cool. Those books are fun. Some of those books that we've read already on more of the metaphysical aspects. That's why I love these groups. Shout out to all of you. Love you all so much. Seriously, this is awesome. This is just so much fun doing this, studying this together. Okay. So what are the difference between these two things, magic and metaphysics? Or should we say, what are the connections between these two things? The following will not explain all the differences / connections between these two things, but should give you some ideas of your own that you can follow up in your own work. In point of time / space, magic came first. Generally, it could be said magic is used by the undeveloped mind to achieve metaphysical results. In a certain type of basic sense for reasoning, magical operations are physical, while metaphysical operations are non-physical. I repeat, magical operations are first physical in order to achieve metaphysical results. You have all heard of the methods used by these lower type minds. Literally, thousands of different actions and motions, dances and movements. All these dance motions and movements are to reinforce the mind. I don't know if he meant to keep the do there or the are, but it doesn't make sense to have them both. All these dance motions and movements do are. Oh, silly me. I don't know why at first when I was reading that I was like thinking it didn't make any sense. All these dance motions and movements are to reinforce the mind. As it is important to understand this point thoroughly, I will repeat myself here again. A lower type mind, a witch example will do. It is asked to bring about some physical result by a customer or friend. She will go through a long series of movements, all done with the end result in mind. Now, from what you know of the elemental forces, you know she was starting the elemental force of air to working. I am not going to continue. You know the sequence of these forces: air, fire, water, earth, and her end result is earth. Please ponder on this. No one can give you this knowledge. You have to and can get it yourself. Just a note here. You might ask, how could physical actions in the physical plane of Earth affect the inner plane of the elemental forces? The answer to this is, and the same answer goes for all similar cases, the lower affects the higher, and the higher affects the lower. So when the physical is moves, remember, there is a portion of Earth that is 1/4 air. So there is your connection. The whole of air is affected, moves. I trust you see this. I could write volumes of words elaborating on the preceding operation, but nothing could be more definite than what it is already stated. What is already stated in the axiom that the lower affects the higher and the higher affects the lower. Also, this can be restated more simply, if possible, and that is, all creation is connected together. Can you get it any plainer? Remember the piece of occult knowledge called The Message on the Emerald I mentioned before. I may deal with this in some other book sometime. However, anyhow, the words in the message you are concerned with are, that which is above is the same as that which is below, and that which is below is the same as that which is above, for the performance of the miracles of the one thing. So now you see the version of the basis of magic plus metaphysical workings, as explained by me. But don't depend on me alone. Read these others, but keep in mind the above rationale. So now we come back to romance of metaphysics. If you are advanced, then you are going to be repelled by the antics of the witch doctor types, even though they get results of a kind. If you are really advanced, you will attempt to achieve results on the physical plane by taking action steps higher than the physical plane for a start, and you should get results. A definite word here should be said about results. When you talk about results, you actually mean mental plane ideas made to work out accurately on the physical plane. And this, of course, is what we all want. A note of warning comes in here. Mental plane ideas never work out exactly as thought onto the physical plane. And don't expect them to. Nothing physical is ever perfect, or can ever be perfect. I probably don't need to really tell too many of you, but perhaps, maybe, who knows? You don't know who's listening to this, so you may be new. You may be hesitant to experiment with any type of magic. Well, that is a very good piece to keep in mind, is that nothing is going to work out, as he says in quotes there, exactly as you think about it. So no matter what you're trying to bring about, it's not going to happen in the way you think it is. It might come about pretty close, but okay. Another note of warning here too. At this point, I have touched on this before elsewhere, but it should be repeated a little differently at this point. You are not to get the idea that all you have to do is to think of something and you physically have it. As a matter of fact, you do have it. You have anything you can think of, but you have it on some other plane, not the physical. There are other things to enter into the matter when it comes to making the transition from the mental plane to the physical plane. There are adjustments of endless kinds to be made. adjustments of all the elemental forces for a final physical plane result. These adjustments are in the nature of requirements that must be met before ideas become physical things. The subject of creative visualization is fully treated in my book, The Art and Practice of Getting Material Things Through Creative Visualization. I want to add another word here for the class of people called inventors. It is also true that desires and wants will manifest themselves on the inner planes in great masses of thought forms, long before they appear on the physical earth plane. People of an inventive nature will feel these thought forms and strive to bring them through, and will often succeed long before the full physical need is actually there for payment for his work. I suppose, from the point of view of the world, the fact that the inventor receives no reward does not matter, but it matters to the inventor. So, inventive people look out for this situation. You may invent and not get paid. For example, the man who invented the guiding white line down the center of the street and road did so years before the need developed for this line. When the line came into use, the 17-year patent period had expired, and the man got nothing. Ouch. And so we come back to the book, The Romance of Metaphysics, again. And please keep the above in mind when you read it. The people referred to in this book made certain discoveries about the power of the mind thinking and set up systems for your benefit. Mr. Rigardi has gathered them together for your benefit, and I advise you to get the book and study it. It's a good occult book for your progressive instructions in this occult. The next book of Mr. Rigardi's that we will consider here is the book named Tree of Life. The consideration of the Tree of Life will be a little unsatisfactory in that the book has been out of print for some time. This book contains a very good analysis of the operations of magic and does not belong in the category of metaphysics as in the aforestated description of the romance of metaphysics. This book should be reprinted, which is all I can say about it at this time. In the meanwhile, you might try the second-hand book market. Although the edition of the book was not very large in the beginning. Yeah, that one's just so easy to find now. I'm sure it would make lots of them proud. I'm sure it would make lots of them happy. Same as reading this. Ophiel, I can feel that pat on the back. Can you feel it? Can you feel the warm embrace of Ophiel as he spreads this knowledge to you? I hope so. I know I can. Looks like the snow has stopped. I like a snow day. I wanted it to stay snowing. Oh well, okay. Here we are, back where we left off. The next book of Mr. Rigardi's we will consider is called A Garden of Pomegranates. I recall seeing this book, but I do not remember too much about it. As I recall, the book treated each letter of the Hebrew alphabet in order and gave a sort of poetic expostulation of each of them. I was into my early stages of the occult then, and I recall the book did not make a deep impression on me. I believe it is also out of print now. Also, check the used book market for this book, which might be more plentiful than some of the others. The next book we will list is entitled My Rosicrucian Adventure. As I recall, the contents of this book did not deal with magic or metaphysics, but with other matters. Yeah, about how he's a secret, he's a member of the Rosicrucians, Illuminati. No good, no good. We better not read Regardi's books after all, because they're going to put wicked thoughts into our vibratory circumference, and I don't think any of us are interested in such a thing. So we better stick with what we know is not going to pollute our circumference. The next book on the list is called The Middle Pillar. As I recall, the contents of this book dealt with an attempt to explain old occult concepts in terms of modern psychological terminology. The time period I first read this book was again in my early occult days, and I was seeking magic, not psychology. You may find it useful, however. I must read it over again sometime. The next book is called The Philosopher's Stone and deals with alchemy. The old-time occultists, of course, lived in the old times. They were limited in their vocabulary, and the only way they could conceive of occult mind, metaphysical, elemental matters, was in symbol terms of their, then, newly being discovered mineral and animal subjects/objects. Therefore, when you read the jargon of the alchemists, you can recognize now and then some symbol, which is more or less clearly expressed. An elemental force. Yeah, it would be, I think Regardi's books, that metaphysical one he had already mentioned, or the Philosopher's Stone, I think would probably be the two I would want to go with. I would say the top two choices. Garden of Pomegranates also, probably that runner up in there. All right. You don't have to worry about alchemy or wonder if you are missing anything vital to your enlightenment. You got it all down already in a very understandable way. If you would like to read this book, there is no reason why not. I'm not sure about its present printing status. Next, we come to the Golden Dawn books. There are 4 of them. These books are supposed to contain the secret knowledge and ritual of a secret occult fraternity called the Golden Dawn. There is quite a story connected with these 4 books and the secret knowledge contained therein. Some of this story is in My Rosicrucian Adventure, and some is in the books themselves, especially as I recall in Volume 1. Again, as I recall, the material is divided roughly as follows. Volume 1, General Occult labeled First Knowledge Lecture, Second Knowledge Lecture, etc. The good amount of occult material in between. Volume 2, subtitled Rituals of the First Order, the Stella Matutina, or Golden Dawn, and it is a description of ritual. Volume 3 is a continuation of the preceding volumes. Volume 4 is full of very interesting occult material and some really advanced stuff, and should be carefully studied in detail. You should have these 4 books, even though they are quite expensive. We received word that the books were to be reprinted. They were not. They have been. Previous to this time, a fire destroyed a large part of the stock of Volume 1, and it was out of stock for a long time. We will try and keep these books on hand as long as they are in print. For time, we are very blessed to be alive in this time. And you are blessed. Clearly you're blessed. If you don't think you're blessed, I mean, let's look at the facts right now. You could be doing all kinds of things right now, but instead, you're choosing to spend your time absorbing this knowledge, hanging out with me. So that means you're absorbing this love too, because you better believe it, baby. I got nothing but love to send your way. Nothing but love to send. Unless you want to be a little hater, then you can. No, I'm just playing. I ain't got nothing but love. I ain't got nothing but love. Because why would you hate? Why would you hate? Probably because I need to continue reading. Let's go. These books contain a tremendous amount of good, highest type occult material. And I say again, should be studied for years. From now on. By you, if you want occult advancement. You should consider these books in the nature of occult reference textbooks. Much all of the material is written in a rather stuffy Victorian style that allows no such nonsense, such as, does this knowledge benefit me physically? You have to dig that out for yourself, but you still ought to have the books for your ultimate benefit. There are two more little books of Mr. Rigardi's, The Art of True Healing and The Art and Meaning of Magic, which I have before me. The first of these two books was out of print for years. When I first contacted Mr. Rigardi, he loaned me the original manuscript of this book, and I copied it out of the typewriter myself. So I know it had value to me and will to you. We also will keep these books as long as they are available in print. We next come to the occult books of Dion Fortune. I have not been able to find out any real information about her. She died some time ago. I gave the wrong dates in my first book and have been called out on this several times. That's all right, Ophiel. We love you. We don't care. Sorry I cussed at you about Crowley too, Ophiel. All right, you know what? Okay. All I can remember now is that it was after World War II. Of what cause she died from, I was never able to find out. Someone said something about an infected tooth led to her death, but that doesn't sound right in a place like England. It was, oh crud, I just looked it up recently too. What was it? Let's see, it was something to do with cancer. Dion Fortune wrote a long list of valuable occult books. All these books were based on the Kabbalah. She also wrote a number of occult novels of more or less interest to students of the occult. There has been an attempt in later years to play down these occult novels. And indeed, some of them were a little strong in the use of occult imagination, more than in the use of occult history information and active workings. Dion Fortune founded an occult faculty, the present address of which you will find listed in her books. I direct you to the address for what it's worth, and I guarantee nothing else. If you contact them, that will be your business alone. I'm pretty sure, yeah, they still exist. They're just in England, the Society of Inner Light. So I don't know what kind of online membership, if you're interested in that kind of thing, but you can at least check out their website and go from there. I do want to note, in passing, that apparently Dion Fortune did not find and develop a successor to carry on her work. This is, to my mind, one of the great defects in occult movements. A teacher arises and starts a movement, carries on for a time, and then passes on with no one to take his place. And inevitably, it seems, the movement society declines. Also, there were in many large societies many strong-willed followers who, when the leader died, engaged in a war for the vacant leadership, and those not winners broke off and founded groups of their own, as was done in the case of the Theosophical movement. Gotta hate it when that happens, huh? Some of these people leave a child who carries on the business of whatever was founded. But in all cases I know of, the child had no powers and just went on the accumulated momentum of the organizations. That sounds like a lot, kind of like what happens when anything gets passed on to the kids for the most part. Or, give it a couple of generations. Also, maybe he wasn't aware, but I don't, I'm pretty sure you could consider Gareth Knight and, what's the other one we read? Butler, or maybe Butler was before her time. I feel like there's another one we've read that were, they're kind of same time, so I could be mistaken, but I swear was sort of after her. Better check the internet for sure on these things. I'm just trying to go based off what I remember from what we've read and studied so far. Let's see, boom. Some of these, we did that one. This is the main reason why my books are so different from the ordinary run of the occult. You could call my books a sort of do-it-yourself occult achievement books in which you are directed to develop yourself to the best of your ability. Please note this, and for your sake, examine every occult book and teacher in the future with the one idea in mind. Is this man or woman just telling me how wonderful he is compared to poor little me? Or is he giving occult instruction I can use to the best of my ability to make myself developed? My advice is to have little to do with the former as possible. Suit yourself. The first Dion Fortune book we will mention and discuss here is her book, The Mystical Kabbalah. This book is a very profound and erudite book upon the subject. I strongly suggest you get this book and read it many times, and also use it for a reference book in the Kabbalah. We will attempt to have this book on hand at all times in the future to the best of our ability. This book consists of a step-by-step analysis of the Tree of Life from its top down. The analysis is very profound and useful, but, as I said before, contains no practices, and so, in my opinion, without practice, half its value is lost. At least to me it is. I had to dig up the practices for myself, and I give some of them out to you already, and will give more later as fast as I can. The next Dion Fortune book we will consider is called Psychic Self-Defense. This book was out of print for many years, but it is again available. This book must be taken with a pretty big grain of salt, but don't neglect it for that reason. Yeah, I would say so too. But perhaps Ophiel will elaborate, but I've heard that it's because at the point she wrote it was after her and Crowley had been having their beefs, and she was kind of losing her marbles a little bit at that point. But I don't know that for sure. This book must be taken. I'm not prepared to say just how prevalent the happenings are that she describes. I have never run across those things here in America, but it could be that people in older England and older occult England, combined with their long Indian occult contacts, could have produced the stronger occult phenomena she describes in this book. Dion Fortune says in one of her books, I can't remember now which one, that each country has its own type of natural magic peculiar to that country alone. I don't find this to be absolutely correct, because I find that Kabbalah magic in all its forms works well here. I do find, though, that metaphysics seem to have been intensively first used here. Christian Science plus unity plus New Thought. And metaphysics may be the American form of magic, as the Kabbalah came from the Moorish Spain, Africa, Egypt, Greece, Palestine, and on down the Asia Minor path to somewhere this side of India. Shout out Barmy Hammett. It came from the Moors. It came from the Moors. So, You should read this book, but be careful. Note what it says, but don't attempt to do likewise, as it might either work or backfire, or just not work at all. I want to say a word here and repeat some things I said before in another way. In playing around with the occult and in using it for protection and or revenge, the main bad part of it is that you beginners can't use it a little bit. In the hands of all but an extremely experienced specialist, it either works with a bang blow up or it does not work at all. If you have a mild argument and get angry with a friend, all you might want to do is slap him at the most, and yet a little extreme example. If you use occult forces in anger, you could kill him. And this, surely you do not want. Nope, nope, nope. And that is why I gotta light another incense anyway, so this is good timing. As I discussed with a friend locally, some of the witch talk, or I mean, even some of the just some of that crap that just has a lot of people doing that exact thing, where someone's hurt your feelings, and so now you are gonna sick so and so on them, or you are going to, maybe you don't roll that way, maybe you're gonna go whatever, even you're gonna do, you've got whoever, I don't know, spells and curses book, and you find one in there, a good little candle one, you whip up, you shouldn't have, you shouldn't have embarrassed me like that, you shouldn't have whatever, and you throw it out, and sure, maybe that person gets a little something, whatever. So you're like, yeah, I got you good. Well, what you might not have known, though, is maybe that person, you never know, maybe that person is an Ophiel. Remember how Ophiel was saying something about earlier about how in the beginning years it was different from the more recent years of people throwing stuff his way and then having nastiness happen to them. Well, right, so yeah, maybe what you're trying to throw, whatever you're trying to throw. Just like I think about the whole people trying to hex or whatever, like Trump, for example. As if like there aren't going to probably be certain blocks or protective measures in that regard, like let alone, like I remember forever ago when I was just more into like things like astral projection, I hadn't even really like discovered magic yet, coming across a guy talking about ways to astral project kind of from in your dreams, but talking about how he had astral projected all kinds of places, but tried to go like places like Buckingham Palace and the White House, but how there's literal like astral security. But it make why wouldn't there be? So I think that's all really needs to be said about that. You can whatever. If I didn't finish connecting any things there, well, it'll find its way to you. I'm sure it will. Where were we? Many psychological case histories are recorded of guilt-ridden adults who, as very young children, had become violently angry at a parent and wished him or her dead. And he or she did die. The guilt-ridden adult knew subconsciously that he had done it with his wish and suffered thereby. The only relief being the skeptic unbelief of the psychologist who is able to persuade the patient he didn't. didn't cause it. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. That's what it is. You remember what the purported Jesus said about becoming like a child? The clear, childlike, undoubting thought is very powerful. So look out. Far better it is during your learning period to suffer rather than strike back. Please take my word for it. So, there's no so there. I don't know where I'm getting a so from. The unfortunate book we will consider is called The Secrets of Dr. Travner. This small book is a rather interesting collection of occult stories, but use the usual salt. Many curious sidelines of magical making are given in line with the English Indian occult observation given above before. This book was reprinted by Llewellyn and will be on hand as long as the edition lasts. Probably you should have it for your collection. The next 4 books we will consider are 4 books by Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Edward Powell. They are the etheric double, the astral body, the mental body, and the causal body. In these books, Mr. Powell went through many large volumes of theosophical writing and made selected extracts from them on the subjects listed above. When I was starting out on the path, I found the above books very illuminating and extremely useful. These books have been in and out of print, but at this writing are all in print again. You should have them for your advancement. They are quite valuable. There is an old standard occult book, standby, called Cosmic Consciousness by Buck. This book is much read by beginners and those in the fringe of beginnings, and has a wide distribution. Haven't read that one. Have any of you read Buck's Cosmic Consciousness? The theme of this book, greatly simplified, is that there comes a time in a truth seeker's life when he crosses a sort of line, and from then on he is a possessor of a consciousness of a higher, different type. Well, this is true. Some people know when they cross this line, but others do not know. I did not know when I crossed the line until I was well past it. You probably should read the book and see how it affects you. This is just my idea, as I did not find it so valuable. But if you are influenced by it, then it is for you. There's another little occult book, which is quite valuable, and you should have it and study it well and see what you get out of it. The name of the book is Nature's Finer Forces, written by a Hindu theosophist whose name is Ramaprasad. The material in this book is quite good and valuable, but it is written in a rather stilted style, as if English was not the language of the author, which it probably wasn't. Yeah. The author hints at many things and even mentions some ideas about practical physical things that are quite different from most Indian books dealing, as they do in nothing practical. A lot of my ideas came from this book, and I intend, in the future if I can, to go over the book and revise it into modern English and explain the obscure facts better. As I approach the end of a book, I go through the usual worry pattern. Did I tell enough? Did I leave something out? Did I forget something? Well, if I did, write in about it, and I'll try to answer. Also, if you find mistakes in spelling and other, please write in. Also, if you know of or find a fine occult book, write in. Therefore, as you go deeper and deeper into the occult, you should. It's too bad, Ophiel. It's too bad. Well, we probably knew each other in that life, but If this was modern, if you were still kicking, oh, I would write you, why not? I would say, hey, my dear sweet Ophiel, these books are great. You said right, if anything, well, here's a few things. All right. Changing things, happenings, year by year, month by month, week by week, and day by day. No thing is ever the same exactly. After a due passage of time. Wait, hang on. I think I might have skipped one too many pages. No, I didn't. You do become aware of many changing things happenings, year by year, month by month, week by week, and day by day. No thing is ever the same exactly. After a due passage of time, as I said, you will note these things. Mostly, these changes come to you as feelings, precognition, intuition, clairvoyance, and many other and varied forms of psychic cognition. This is of the psychic past, and there is also another way you will come to notice the changing happenings, and that is an actual pressure effects on your body and in your body, and also notice the effects on the bodies and natures of others. Then you will notice the happening affecting towns, cities, countries, states, and finally nations. Study life hard. You will see it, and as you grasp these ideas, you will see it more and more, and clearer. Now the cause of all these changes, happenings, are the forces personified as gods that you have been studying. They are at the bottom of it all, of every happening on this physical plane. And you know what these forces are. They are the basic 4 elemental forces and their combinations, attached to planets. I cannot explain it too clearly here, and I don't grasp it too well myself just now. But our whole planetary system is also one gigantic tree of life, with the 4 elemental forces and their combinations attached to the planets and the combinations are obtained by the planets coming near and far from each other in physical distance. It's, he's done that a couple times now, and each time I've it's one of those times where instead of actually reading the book, I've been looking at the screen real quick just to see how the pointer's doing and all of that, and so it throws me off extra. Okie dokie. So anyhow, we're almost done. Here we go, you guys. This is the real basis for astrology, and that is all there is to it. I cannot here go into all the knowledge and information that has been written about personal horoscopes. They are legion, and they have some value and give some insight into one's character, although I have never found one to come out exactly. In my opinion, on point of accuracy, horoscopes pertain more clearly to very large numbers of people rather than to one individual person. Please keep this in mind in the future. However, there is a way that you can receive some guidance along these paths, as I didn't mean that there were no possibilities of some general guidance at all. Many years ago, a really nice man named Llewellyn George entered the astrological field and wrote many fine books on astrology. Among these works was a yearly book and a yearly calendar called the Moon Sign Book and the Star Guide Calendar. Footnote says, I now realize that I had given this information before, but I decided to repeat it here again as the information is so valuable and useful in your daily life living that I hope the repeat will jolt you into doing the action. That's fine, Ophiel, you know, no worries, man. Hey, we've been doing this a little while. We know anytime you guys put something more than once, then it's probably one of those things. I mean, how many times did you even kind of say, hey, did you get Gailey's book? Did you get Dion Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah as we were going? So, but no worries, no worries. You see, the moon is the one channel that conducts the other forces down to the earth. And by reading the moon signs, you can forecognize coming possible effects with some degree of accuracy. Shit, Zero, this is what you and I were just talking about. I suggest strongly that you get this set of astrological books at the beginning of each year and make an attempt to study and follow its directions. You may find it extremely useful, if not very valuable. All right. The book is now done, and this page completes it, except for some small additions. The next book scheduled is entitled The Art and Practice of Talismanic Magic. Wow, that was perfect. Wow. Yes, it is, in fact. It is partly written, and I should get it completed fairly soon, if you prod me. I have left the preceding pages unchanged for reference purposes. However, please note that most all the books I refer to in the previous pages have now been reprinted. If you want information about reprints, contact Samuel Weiser, The Weiser Inc. Samuel Weiser, my only question is, will you please... excuse me, not a good time to have a little soda belch. Anyway, will you please stop with these? I don't know, man. I don't know what's up with these, like, crystal shop covers on the books, i.e., like, you know. Although, you know, okay, whatever, dude. This is still cool. After meditating on this a while, sure, it's still great. It's still awesome. But that one that was for so long, the black cover with that painting of the tree. Come on, man. We all love that. That one was so good. So, whatever. It's your book company, bro. You want to hire me? I'll work for you. Why not, man? Okay, so, yep. Back here, it looks like all that's left is a bunch of just more information. It's kind of just a breakdown of Ophiel's books. Hit some of those big nets. So. Cool, we did it, you guys. We did it. Congratulations. Congratulations. That completes Ophiel's Art and Practice of the Occult. Hope you've learned something. Hope you've learned something very valuable. I have learned a lot of things valuable from this experience. The most valuable thing I've gained is all of you. So thank you for being here, for sharing this common interest and pursuit of the divine. I wish you a pleasant rest of your Tuesday. Or whatever, whenever you get it, I am just so excited for what is to come next. Because he was right. Not only did he write them in that order, but boom, we are reading them in that order. As we said before, that's so sick. I love that artwork. It's just so cool. Okay, so we've completed one. We will be getting on to this next one. My plan also with that, which I think I'm gonna clip this last little part out, or maybe I'll just make a separate, like a little short or something. But so what I think I'm gonna do is, since we're practically there, so I think we could probably live stream that one. If not, hit up a couple buddies for sure, or whatever, tell a couple people quit lollygagging so that we can get that live stream. And then we can live stream on the Talismanic Magic one. And then I have on the side, because what I would like to do, I think would be cool on the side would be to continue kind of this format, although I think I'll maybe just do like a one chapter at a time, maybe like even one day at a time, and kind of almost do that a little more audio book style than book study, because I think I have another cool one, and Zero agrees. Let him know, Zero, to do that. So we could have the live, and then on the side we could be dipping into something a little else. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. That's just what we're gonna do. So be ready, be prepared, because the apocalypse is now. Shiva's eye has opened, right? Look at the world outside. It's burning, baby. Actually, mine's not. Mine's chilling. Mine's a frosty winter wonderland. And it brings a smile to my heart. Okay, but I'm gonna head out for now. That's enough of that. So much love to you all. Thank you for doing this, for being here. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to be prepared, be on the lookout for when we'll be streaming that next book. And other than that, this has been Jay Baldell. Love you so much. Goodbye.